with the Young Greens of Ohio. We are doing our live stream on electoral reform, election maps, and representative democracy. I am one of the co-chairs of the Young Greens of Ohio. Marco, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Marco. I am a member of the Green Party of Ohio. I am happy to be here for the election reform live stream. And
do you hold any positions on the Youth Caucus of Ohio?
I guess I'm just the chair, one of the chairs, I guess.
Yep.
As of now. Yeah.
All right. Austin, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Bayshore. I'm the liaison officer for the Young Greens of the state of Ohio. I ran for state representative under the Greens in 2018 in Portage County, Northeastern Ohio. Currently, I am working with the International Committee of the Green Party of the United States, as well as an international observer for the Green Party of Korea. Thank you all for joining today.
All right, let's get started. All right. Marco, I have a question for you. What is election reform?
I see election reform as a radical change of the current system we have of our two-party system in America we have now. So things like flying multiple parties into our system, how we do voting, things like that.
Austin, what is election reform?
Election reform, just like Marco said, is the process of having free and fair elections for a truly representative democracy. It includes things such as voter reform, election integrity, voting process reform. It also includes opening up the voting system to people with past criminal offenses or even young people, lowering the voting age, as well as making sure people who can vote abroad if they live abroad or live outside their current districts for whatever temporary inconvenience may be. But making sure people have the opportunity and the voice and a choice in their election system.
Yes, I agree. All right, second question. I'll start with you, Austin. How is the United States falling behind many democracies around the world?
It's quite important to note that the United States is not a democracy. The United States is a two-party dictatorship of capital interests. The current ruling parties of the United States may sound different when it comes to federal campaigns for president or Congress. However, when it comes to local campaigns, we are more often than not a one-party system. Democrats and Republicans pick and choose which local races to run in. For example, the Democrat will contact a Republican local committee and say, hey, we'll run for mayor if you run person for this district city council. And the Republican says, okay, if you run for this district city council, we'll run for sheriff. So many of the local elections in the United States are one-party systems where we do not have voter choice and voter authenticity. So electoral reform will help to move that in the United States to being a two-party representative democracy that we see all around the world, from Eastern Asia to Europe, Africa, and Central and South America.
Marco, how is the United States falling behind many democracies around the world?
I agree with Austin on how America is not a true democracy. It is just a democracy for oligarchs and just capital interests overall. I believe that any democracy under capitalism is just works for oligarchs and capital. I think if we truly want a true democracy in America, we should switch from our capital interests to more interest for the masses. And I think for that, we have to really change from the two-party system.
All right, next question. How is the Electoral College impeding electoral reform? Marco?
Can you repeat that?
Oh, yes. How is the Electoral College impeding electoral reform?
It is not allowing people to people's votes to matter. So, like example, Donald Trump in 2016, he didn't win on the popular vote. Mainly depends on the electoral votes of like 13 states, with Ohio being one. So it's not really compatible with democracy. Yeah.
Right. Austin, how is the Electoral College impeding electoral reform?
It's absolutely not a representative system of democracy. Electoral College in the United States is one of the only countries to have such an institution like this. People's votes really don't matter when it comes to the Electoral College. This century, the 21st century, in the past 22 years, we should have never had a Republican president. But the Electoral College and the imperial interests of the United States have not allowed that to happen. The Democrats and Republicans are both the same when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to their relationship to capital. But that's the slight minor difference caused way too much of a backlash within the electoral collegiate sessions. So this type of illegitimate democracy does not allow for free and fair competition between a multi-party state, which we've seen, again, in many countries are accomplishing this rather successfully. However, the United States, a country who proclaims to be the world's biggest democracy, so much so that they'll export their democracy to kill 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Palestine, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and so on. But they won't. It's an illegitimate form of democracy that does not represent the true will of the people.
Yep. All right, next question. What is ranked choice voting and how can it improve the electoral process? Austin?
So ranked choice voting is a form of ballot voting in the United States, where instead of just choosing one candidate, you rank your candidates, one being the best and one being your most favorable candidate, the candidate that is most likely representative of your ideology. And then 3, 4, 5, whatever the last number is the candidate who you most disagree with. So with ranked choice voting, long gone are the days where you have to decide between a candidate who has a chance of winning and a candidate who you actually like. So again, it's a ranking system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many candidates there are in a specific race, you get to choose and rank them on accordance to your ideology and where you fit in the political spectrum. So it's a chance for free and fair actual representation of the people of a district.
Marco, same question. What is ranked choice voting and how can it improve the electoral process?
Ranked choice voting is where people can have multiple choices based on their ideas from their most favorable to least favorable candidates. Whereas right now we don't have, get the liberal idea of just choosing between the lesser evils. And that way you can just choose who you actually believe can win the election based on what you think is right. And it will improve our election process by giving people more of a choice of who they can vote for, obviously.
That's if we have multi-party local elections.
Yes. All right, next question. What are some alternatives to our electoral system? Marco?
I think some alternatives to our electoral system is getting rid of the two-party system, obviously, by allowing multiple parties in like this party, Green Party, and Libertarian Party.
All right, Austin, what are some alternatives to our electoral system?
The good thing about alternative electoral system is that we do not have to reinvent the wheel. There are hundreds of different electoral systems used rather successfully in many different countries, many different localities, even in many different states around the country. For example, the legislature of the state of New Hampshire, I believe, has multi-representative districts. So each district has 3 or 4 different representatives. So they often have quite a few minor party candidates sneaking in their state legislature every election cycle, multiple independents because of that system. We need also proportional representation in the state of Ohio, to where if a party gets 5% of the vote, they get 5% of the seats. This can be easily achieved with adding 17 seats to the state house. So we'll have a total of 117 seats. We'll still have our 100 little districts if the Electoral Commission ever decides what those districts actually are, as well as adding 17 seats for proportional representation. Each party in the state of Ohio will be given the option to run 6 candidates for proportional representation. And these candidates can tour around the state of Ohio, getting people to vote for the party in a new section of the ballot. So it actually reflects party ideology. It actually reflects true partisan representation in the state of Ohio. And they're divvied up by a 1% threshold. So a party must achieve 1% of the vote in order to achieve one of the 17 proportional representation seats. This is the exact same electoral system, they'll scale down, that they use in Korea, they use in Austria. The German parliament is also uses a type of proportional representation system. So again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. This isn't rocket science. There are democracies around the world that are using alternative parliamentary systems that we can borrow in our state legislatures. Some countries that are using these types of systems have a smaller population than the state of Ohio. So we can also use them as well. We have 11 to 12 million people in our state. There's no reason why we shouldn't be using accurate proportional representation to help better reflect the reality of our situation.
Yep, I agree. Marco, did you want to add anything else to this question?
I was gonna add, like, for better alternatives, I'd say like more council ways, kind of other democracy, other places where like USSR, they had like council or Soviet democracy type ways. I've been reading the past about those, and I think they're great ideas we can implement.
All right, next question. How are the electoral maps an impediment to democracy? Marco?
For example, the Republican Party, they have redistricted so much that it's not showing proportion how people voted. Like most people voted like Democrat in some areas, but somehow the Republicans had like more, it was like 50 or 80% more than the area was showing. So like the Supreme Court shut that down, but they're trying again. So
Austin, same question. How are the electoral maps an impediment to democracy?
We have had 3 different electoral maps denied by the state Supreme Court over the course of just the beginning of this year. We have an electoral system in the United States, or specifically the state of Ohio, where the winners get to draw their own constituencies. So it's very taxing on the democratic process to have this type of situation that arises when we have the winners redrawing their own victory so they can win again and again and again. Even though an area may be 50% one party, 50% the other party, they can redraw the maps to where they win 4 out of 5 times. It's very not democracy, and it's not how accurate representation works. It's not actual democracy. It's a dictatorship of capital interests. That's the only way I can really describe it. Dictatorship, mob rule, basically. So we need to have independent, permanent districts in the state of Ohio where is an accurate representation of the people. So some people feel as if, oh, I need to vote Democrat because if I don't vote Democrat, then the Republican's going to win this district, or they feel like their voices don't matter. They live in an area that's majority Democratic Party stronghold. However, the district that they're in, the Republican always wins. So they feel like they're not represented in the democratic process. So they just give up. And that's not an option for democracy. That's not an option for real change in our systems. So we need to have independent voices, independent choices to even just something as basic and as foundation building as an electoral map.
All right, next question. What is the Green Party's stance on election reform, the Electoral College, and ranked choice voting? Austin?
Yeah, the Green Party has always supported ranked choice voting, opening up the democratic process as a third party opposition in the United States. We've always pushed for proportional representation. Again, 1% of the vote equals 1% of the seats, as well as expanding to more parties, opening the ballots to the Libertarian Party, Constitution Party, American Solidarity, the Greens, the Communist Party, if they ever want to get back into electoral politics, because they haven't done anything for the past 40 years. But allowing people real voices and real choices, and not to feel that they can't vote for who they actually support because the shittier candidate may actually win. We believe that's not true democracy. That's a hostage situation. That's not democracy.
I agree. Marco, how have the Green Party felt about the Electoral College, election reform, and ranked choice voting? You're on mute.
The Green Party has always supported letting other parties in, like what Austin said, the Green Party, the Communist Party, the Constitutional Party, Libertarian Party, into the current democracy we have now, and just letting people have more a voice with the ranked choice voting. It's something we've always been running on and pushing for past years, and I think it would be really helpful if we ever push that through.
All right. Next question. How can we implement these reforms to create a better, more representative democracy? Marco?
I think first we could implement ranked choice voting just by looking at the examples of how like we have a state in America that is like it's either Maryland or Maine. They already have ranked choice voting in their states where they can people already have the choice of who they can vote for, from their least favorable to their least favorable to their most favorable. I think we should build off those first before we can have more radical change.
Yep, I agree. I believe that is Maine. We should implement that everywhere. Austin, how can we implement these reforms to create a better, more representative democracy?
I absolutely agree. I think ranked choice voting is the first step in the stepping stone to having a truly representative democracy. But I don't think we'll have fully representative democracy until we have a fully proportional representation system. And also an electorate, people, a citizenry that understand that when you vote, you need to vote for people you actually support. Not voting for parties just because they can win, not voting for candidates just because you think they can win. Because with that, in the United States, we have developed a political culture, and we have developed a system where nowadays in 2022, we have politicians that don't really stand for anything. Their only ideology, their only governing principle is I'm not a Democrat or I'm not a Republican. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and all of these right-wing sycophants, crazy people, for lack of a better word, in Congress don't actually really have a policy, don't have a plan, do not have an outlook for a future. You go on their campaign website, there's nothing about policy. And it's because their whole ideology, their one brain cell, is that they're not a Democrat, they're not a liberal. And that's the dangers of the two-party system. So we need to absolutely combat that by, one, having candidates that actually stand for something and actually have a vision while in government, realizing that we need to vote for politicians we actually support, And also opening up their electoral system, whether it's lowering the voting age to 16, whether it's allowing people with criminal records to vote again, making the process easier for overseas and military voters to vote. As many of you know, I lived in Korea, and while I was in Korea, it cost me almost $50 to mail in my ballot to vote in a primary election, not even a general election, because I lived in a very rural area of Korea, and my hometown, where I'm registered to vote, is another rural area of the United States. And the County Board of Elections gave me 1 week to return my ballot. This was before Corona too. So I was like, this is physically impossible. It's going to take a week just to get to the airport to fly over back to the United States. So I had to express mail 1 piece of paper from Korea to the United States, and it cost me $50. So absolutely opening the overseas military voters, advocating, absolutely pushing for early voting and mail-in voting, expanding the mail-in voting system, not shrinking it, so that people really feel that they have a voice and a choice in a two-party dictatorship of capital and imperial interests.
Yeah, on that point, keeping some of the things that we did during the COVID elections, keeping mail-in voting, early voting, things that are just make it easier for everyone to vote, not just having one single day where you can vote, is going to be really helpful to the reform.
Absolutely, the United States election day is not a federal holiday.
Exactly.
Which is an extreme travesty.
Yes, it definitely should be.
It should be a federal holiday and extended by at least like 3 more days, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every single democracy that I can think of in this past like 17 seconds, election day is a federal holiday. The workers get the day off.
Exactly.
Presidential election and local elections alike.
It should be a paid holiday, because if you're gonna have to choose between paying rent or getting enough money to buy food, or having to vote, which one are you going to pick for? Yeah.
We only have, also, I think what's important is having a threshold for elections in the United States.
Yes.
So for example, in Austria and Korea, I keep bringing them up because I'm sorry, but for example, you have to have 50% of registered voters vote in the election for it to be counted as valid. If 50% of the registered voters don't vote in the election, you need to redo it. And first off, I think that's going to be really hard for the United States, because even in the presidential elections, we barely hit 60% turnout. But again, if only 20% of the people, 15% of people are voting in local elections, last local election, I think in my area, only 8% of registered voters turned out and voted.
Yeah. What would also help is if we all can also, as soon as we turn 18, be registered to vote, instead of having to go do it ourselves. Because if we can do it with the draft, why can't we do it when we go vote? Why can't we just automatically register?
We can automatically register people to go die in a war for oil for Chevron and Lockheed Martin, but we can't automatically register people to be engaged in their civic communities.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
I think it's so weird how like our parties are so disliked in America that in Florida, more people voted yes for $50 minimum wage than they voted for president. They just like skipped that part of their ballot.
Yeah. Our Congress has what, an 8% approval rating. Meanwhile, it has a 95% re-election rate. So that just goes to show that we're not a truly representative democracy with only 8% approval, but a 95% re-election rate.
Yep. Also, we are joined here by Aiden Raymond. He is the secretary of the Young Greens of Ohio. Aiden, do you have any closing comments on our election reform discussion?
No, I did not have anything written down.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay, fill me in real quick.
All right, we're just talking about election reform, ranked choice voting, how the United States is falling behind many democracies in that respect, how horrible the electoral college is, things like that.
Okay, well, my closing statement is on this matter that we really don't have any sort of democracy as long as we have the Republicans and Democrats in power. I mean, just in the 2020 election, the Democrats sued us off, what was it, 3, 4 state ballots? That's very undemocratic of them. We really won't have any voting reform until we can start voting them out of office, Republicans and Democrats both.
Yep.
And
Right.
then when the courts are packed full of Democrat and Republican affiliated judges, that's
Mhm.
also a different challenge.
Yes. Austin, do you have any closing comments?
The United States is not a democracy. It is a two-party dictatorship of capital and imperial interests. We are an oligarchy, 3 oligarchs in a trench coat. The United States is propping up countries around the world, saying that we support democracy, free and fair election, constantly attacking the People's Republic of China, while Taiwan, the separatist island of Taiwan, is 3 US weapons manufacturers in a trench coat. The United States is the biggest farce in the world history. Russia isn't even trying to hide it anymore. Meanwhile, the United States is still pretending to be a democracy when our local elections, anything that's not for a federal office, are picked and choose by the local Democrats and Republicans. And then when they actually have opposition from the Green Party, from the Libertarian Party, or from independents, the independents are removed. The third party candidates are removed from the ballot with judges that are affiliated with the 2 ruling parties. So we desperately need electoral reform in the United States, and we desperately need to start voting for candidates whom we actually support and not just candidates who we think can win.
Yep. Marco, any closing comments?
All I gotta say is it's not a true democracy unless these capitalists are out of power.
All right, thank you for coming to our electoral reform live stream. I'm Mackenzie with the Young Greens of Ohio. This is Austin, Marco, and Aiden, who are also part of the Young Greens of Ohio. Thank you. Come to our live stream April 23rd.